Let's talk about the United States-Saudi Arabia relationship and how it could change under incoming President Joe Biden. Former U.S. diplomat in Africa and Daily Maverick associate editor Brooks Spector talks to us from Johannesburg. A very good morning to you, Brooks. I couldn't believe it when I read yesterday that the U.S. is weighing up immunity here. What's the drive behind that? Is Donald Trump trying to get his last score for his buddy before he leaves?
Well, good morning. Good to be with you. I think the Trump administration comments are in response to the story that Khashoggi's fiance, the late journalist Turkish fiance, and a human rights group called Dawn have filed in federal courts to sue the crown prince in Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, under what's called the Alien Tort Claims Act, and that goes back to 1798, actually, and a much newer law, 1991 passed law called the Torture Victim Protection Act, which provides recourse in American courts for violations of international law and on behalf of victims of quote-unquote flagrant human rights violations and torture. And I guess being killed and cut up into small pieces constitutes a human rights violation under most anybody's view. But that fits into, as you're alluding to, fits into a larger narrative that the Trump administration has from its very first days made Saudi Arabia the center point for its Middle East strategy. And that, of course, was directed at Iran. And almost anything the Saudis chose to do, whether it was chop up a journalist or continue their war in Yemen against Yemeni and Iranian operatives, anything was okay as long as the Saudis were doing it on behalf of containing the Iranians. But remember, we've got less than a month's worth of the Trump administration on the books, and the incoming Biden administration has made it rather clear that human rights will have a much larger role in its determinations of foreign policy, and that things like this will not be allowed to go unnoticed and unchecked.
Okay, let me just jump in here quickly, if I may. I mean, sure. Donald Trump's first trip was to Saudi Arabia after the attack on the journalist. I mean, everybody was almost genuflecting when they saw Mohammed bin Salman at Davos. I'm just wondering how exposed he might feel now with Biden, because Biden said he'll also tackle things like the atrocities committed in Yemen. Where does this then leave the relationship?
Well, it won't end the American-Saudi relationship for sure. I mean, that is a key part of American policy vis-a-vis the Middle East regardless, but it's certainly going to circumscribe certain kinds of actions, whether it's in Yemen or whether it's related to external critics of the Saudi regime. And the Biden administration has made it really very clear that they're not going to be supportive with an absolute blank check the way the Trump administration has been. If I were the prince, I would be more concerned with that than with the outcome of the Alien Tort Claims Act lawsuit in a federal court, because that possibly will stretch on for years, and the courts may well rule that they don't have jurisdiction. But as far as American policy goes, that's going to make things a little more complicated and a little more difficult, and certainly a little bit more circumscribed than has been the case in the past. If I were the prince, I'd pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the Biden administration in a way that they thought they could just go get whatever they needed from the Trump administration. Things will be different. There is a new sheriff in town.
You know, we thought a lot more could be pushed under Barack Obama, but he was also held back. So, you know, the politics at play in the Senate and the House of Representatives. Brooks, good to talk to you. Thanks very much for that.